Hi folks, how's it going? Welcome to the next edition of Serverless Craic. Myself, Dave Anderson. I'm a technical fellow for Bazaar Voice and author and contributor to Serverless Edge.
Mark McCann, architect at Globalization Partners and author and contributor at Serverless Edge.
Hey everyone, Michael Riley, architect, contributor, Serverless Edge, and yep, happy Friday.
That's it. There's a term kicking about around modern cloud. So I thought it might be interesting to kind of dive into that a little. A lot of people, it's a phrase that we would use a lot, but there's a lot of people kind of asking, what does modern cloud, modern application, modern architecture actually mean? And I think it's hard to explain what it means without thinking about legacy cloud. Gregor Hohpe has a great description. He talks about if you lift and shift to AWS or any of the cloud providers and don't modernize your architecture, all you've got is a fancy data center. You've moved your old data center to like a cloud level data center. So you just got a really top of the range data center, but you're not actually benefiting from cloud. So I think I spoke to a company a year or two ago who had a 5-step maturity model for the cloud. And they asked me about serverless first. And they said, oh, you've just described step 7. So they hadn't really moved beyond a lot of the what I would call the modern cloud practices. So I thought it might be good to do maybe a series about modern cloud. But before we get into that, what do you guys think modern cloud is?
For Mike.
Good question. It definitely is. There's definitely a lot of kind of dimensions and lenses to that question. But the way I kind of see it at the minute is, to your point, lift and shift is we're lifting what we have in there and it's now running in there. But are you really taking advantage? Is your organization taking advantage? Is your team taking advantage of all the capabilities that exist within that cloud space? And in order to take advantage of those things, you got to operate in certain ways. And I think there's kind of modern cloud operations and things like that. We've talked about lots of it in the previous podcasts, or things like well architected. What are serverless teams do and things like that. So for me, it's it's been able to kind of take advantage of that and really getting into proper continuous style architecture, but doing that in a nice, sustainable and safe kind of fashion.
Yeah, I think the building on that, I think it's about going fast. It's about reducing that time to value, but in a sustainable way, in a way that you're not accruing lots of technical and organizational and process debt along the way. So if you're leveraging a modern cloud to its maximum, if you're following like a serverless first approach, you're able to go fast, sustainably over a decent period of time, because you're building up lots of technology debt that you have to sort of pay down and slows you down in the long run. So I think, if you're in modern cloud and you're embrace sort of serverless first and you're leveraging all the well-architected stuff, you'll definitely know it. You'll feel the benefits and your business will see the benefits.
I also think there is, and I think Nicole Forsgren coined it really well in the Accelerate book with high-performing organizations. Yeah. Modern cloud, it's almost like the graduation of IT into the actual business, coming out of being a department and actually being part of the company and driving the company forward, because you've got that speed to actually drive the company forward and be involved in the business conversations as opposed to being in the wheelhouse shoveling coal. So I think there's something about a graduation of IT, the change from being a cost center into a value generation or pushing value. One thing that I think there's a couple of points that I think are interesting about modern cloud. I think for me, there's something about technical debt. If you're set up well, you're not creating tons and tons of technical debt.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that goes back to, kind of that's where my head was at with the continuous architecture, so if you're operating in the modern cloud and you're kind of operating within the modern cloud paradigms, so like event-driven architecture, leveraging managed services, being able to kind of, leverage the sort of well-architected patterns, for example, you're continuously evolving what you're building, so that also means that, along the way, if again, Mark, you constantly said all the time, code is a liability and stuff like that. So we should always be kind of, well architected teams and teams working in modern cloud. They've got great observability. They're also, they're constantly rebuilding things, refactoring things, evolving things, just building upon what they've done in previous projects or on the platform. And again, even in some of the other stuff we talk about, like strategies, and we talked about like Pioneer, Settler, Town Planner, Innovate, Leverage, Commoditize, operating in those sorts of gameplays. So yeah, so from a technical debt perspective, because we are continuously evolving, you tend not to hold on to anything you're not leveraging. So it's not really accruing. You're not really accruing a lot of debt. You're continuously modernizing, which means you're constantly managing that side of your architecture.
And I think because you've optimized that, whenever new capabilities or features or services come along, you can rapidly innovate and leverage them for differentiating value, right? So if AWS release or Google or here, whatever your cloud provider release a new service or feature, because you've managed down your code liabilities, because you're working in your optimal way, you can embrace that rapidly, like in days. And we've seen examples of this in our careers where something is announced and our teams are leveraging it the next day or the next week. If you're in if you have a really good modern cloud stance, that's possible. If you're not, that's years down the road for you to be able to embrace some of those new features and capabilities. And that could be the difference between your business making it or not making it, right? So there's a real, like we talked about it earlier, but there's a real business differential to embracing this modern cloud approach. And Dave, you're right. We're much more, you're higher up the value chain now. You're much more business impactful. You're much more visible to the business because this stuff is actually truly driving your business success.
One of the things that is very hard to define with modern cloud is the technology. There are companies using Lambda that I think are in legacy because they're using it wrong. And there's people using EC2s that are working in a very modern and progressive way.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to be very clinical about your technology choice and use it well. There's no such thing as a good or bad technology choice. It's how you use it to your problem. So that's why it's very hard to say Lambda good, container bad, or whatever. Yeah. That's something that I think a lot of people outside technology find it really hard to deal with because the technology changes so quickly. And it's actually nothing to do with the technology choice. It's how well your teams are planning to use them.
Yeah, I think that's where Worley Button really comes to the fore here, of understanding the users and the user needs and the value chain of technology that you have at your disposal to meet those needs, and choosing the right tool for the job, right? So a well-optimized EC2 instance for this particular use case may be perfect, and you can justify the additional sort of runtime operational burden because you have that good situational awareness about your tech stack and the choices you're making. I think teams that are operating in the modern cloud, they have that situational awareness and they understand the trade-offs for the technology choices they make, and they can justify it all the way up that chain to the actual needs of the users.
Yeah, I think, and then just adding to that, I think that's a cracking point. Like, we always kind of describe inertia, in terms of the Worley maps and spotting maybe teams or tech that's suffering from inertia. And you hit the nail on the head there, Dave. Like, inertia can be that we're not maybe looking after something within that Lambda function. That just means we have to go back and continuously look at it or fix it or patch it, or we haven't really thought about the longer term or what what is its role within this kind of solution. And you could have an EC2 container where we've all the operational kind of capability around it, and we're patching all the time. All our dependencies are up to date. We're getting ready to move. Mobility. We're always thinking about what's the next thing. Is this the right sort of piece of kit for the problem that we're trying to solve? And I think there's also a mindset element to that as well. It kind of comes from sort of teams working in a modern cloud type way. It kind of speaks to that.
One of the things that's very hard to tell as well is that you can tell from your teams. There's things like the whole DevOps, going from infrastructure to DevOps, the SRE, you build, you own it, you run it, whatever. That's very complicated because that's changed so much over the past 10 years.
Yeah.
one of the smells is how DevOps is talked about in the company. And if you've lots of excuse me, if you've lots of handoffs, if developers are sitting waiting and stuff with other teams, that's a bad sign. I would say a modern cloud team can do everything they need to do themselves, and they rarely need to go outside their team for help.
Yeah, I think there's fast flow and there's very few sort of handoffs. You still need, not necessarily DevOps teams, but you need those enabling teams. There's complicated subsystem teams who can ensure that your streamline teams, your full stack teams have all the experience, expertise, capabilities to do what they need to do without having to talk to anybody, right? So I think team topologies terms, it's your streamline teams are set up for success, and they're able to move without friction, without handoffs or dependencies on anybody. But you have the organizational structure around that to make sure that's done appropriately, and the guardrails are the right ones for your business.
Like the train's a good analogy. A train and the train driver and the staff in the train can drive the train from A to B, and they can do that themselves. But they still need someone to lay the track, work the signals, and do all the other things, and repair the train when it gets there. So there's, it's not you're doing on your own, but there's other things providing other services.
Yeah.
Well architected also factors here as well. We talked a bunch about that, and then there's time to market too, how fast the team can deliver.
Yeah, I think the observability of that's critical too, right? The teams know how they're delivering, and they have good radiators and good dashboards that your deployment frequency, your mean time to restore, your lead time for change, all the DORA sort of key 4 metrics are part of that, but also the well-architected pillars and your adherence to them. Teams have good understanding of where they are in that journey. And I think that's critical for your teams adopting modern cloud. Is they know their current status, they know how well architected they are or not, right? And they know how to evolve and improve.
So I think it feels like it's an interesting discussion. I think it's worth going through the flywheel that we're going to talk about in the book, and part of the book, up and coming book, really talks about like how to be effective in modern cloud. That's part of it. And the flywheel, we've got purpose in the sense that going through the strategy and the business of the company. We've got challenge, which is your kind of environment for success and the culture within the organization. Next best action, which is from a developer's point of view, all those design patterns and process, etc. Maybe some DevOps stuff. And then long-term value about that kind of architecture, data security, and sustainability. So it might be interesting to look at through those 4 lenses, the modern cloud. But what do you think it's for this kind of series? What do you think we can get out of it towards the end of it? What's the goal of talking about modern cloud? Do you think is it well understood?
No,
is it changing so fast? Does it change so fast that nobody knows?
I think from a goal perspective, it's definitely one of these things. If we can, you can clarify it and you can kind of set, whether you're depending on where you're at within an organization. So if you're like a CTO or an architect or the developer, it's kind of good to understand the art of the possible, and and what does good actually look like? What can we actually do, and set sort of direction and pathway towards those. And as you say, you don't arrive here overnight. So you'll see, even if you look at AWS, for example, in terms of how they get people into the cloud, I think they used to have it's a 7-step process. One of those was that initial, let's just do like a lift and shift in. But once you're there, what next? What do you do? How do you arrive at that point? And I think, there's many different ways to evolve that. And I think it's good to have a conversation around it and acknowledge it and accept it that, and you can do it. It just takes a wee bit of time, and you got to keep your eye on that. So
that was that the 7 hours of migration, which is interesting.
Yeah,
I think I think the goal of this series is really just to start sowing those seeds, putting those questions in people's heads about what, like Mike, you mentioned, what is possible, right? And what does good look like? Hopefully we can shed a little bit of light on what we have seen to work, what we have experienced in our careers, and some of the benefits and some of the sort of pitfalls and some of the things to look out for when you're going down this path, because it's not easy, but it's well worth doing. And in today's competitive sort of global landscape, you really need to be evolving towards leveraging modern cloud properly.
That's right. If you're there, there's opportunity. So
Yeah.
that's the crack. We'll flesh these out over the next couple of episodes then. So thanks very much for listening. We're on the blog. We're at the serverlessage.com, at serverlessage on Twitter, and on some other channels as well. Thanks very much.
Thanks
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody.
Bye.